Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, and let's talk about what is happening with Tesla stock today on a massive crash of a day, down pretty much 10% from the peak to the low. Actually, if we talk about from like the highest point we were at today to the lowest point we pretty much closed out, we're down actually about 11%. So a pretty catastrophic day for Tesla today. I mean, to be fair, the market is down decently today. Honestly, QQQ down 2.2%, but Tesla definitely underperforming that even more so, even though at the beginning of the day it was actually doing pretty well. So we'll talk about all that, my thoughts, etc. moving forward. And yeah, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section is live. That link is down below. If you're interested, for just $3 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, posts, updates, technical analysis, options flow, all that good stuff. Every single day the market is open on Tesla. And also, of course, during these kind of days, I'm always there talking to them and giving my thoughts. So again, if you're interested, link below in the description, $3 a month. But jumping into a Tesla closing the day down 8.5%, closing at pretty much $241 per share, down another 0.7%. Post market at 239 at the moment. So let's talk about it, right? A pretty hideous candle on Tesla today, right? We have, of course, a massive bearish engulfing candle where we pretty much not only engulfed yesterday's candle, but pretty much the last almost week's worth of candles, right? So a lot of, candles getting engulfed by this massive red candle on very high volume, even higher than the highest volume candle we had during this rally, which is a little on the concerning side. Now, obviously, there's, some potential good things, if you will, from here, but, this is, in my opinion, a quote unquote healthy correction. Unfortunately, there is a possibility that, well, there's just more correction to go. We'll see how that plays out. But the thing I want to start off with is actually going to be on the weekly time frame, right? The weekly time frame is important here for a couple of reasons. So obviously we still have tomorrow, but the reason I bring up the weekly time frame first is because, well, in order for Tesla to not, okay, let me start in a different way. This is a hideous weekly candle. This weekly candle is obviously very, very ugly. This is just an absolute, like really bad looking weekly candle. It's an inverted candle, inverted hammer candle, similar to the candle that pretty much started this massive downtrend right here. You can see in late December of last year, right? This pretty much inverted hammer candle right at the resistance point, and then we completely trended downwards pretty aggressively for quite some time, for pretty much the majority of the year, really. I'm sure all of you are quite familiar with that. Now, we're setting up what looks to be a arguably uglier version of that candle here. Now, whether or not that'll actually come to fruition, well, we'll see tomorrow, right, when the weekly candle actually closes. But unless Tesla has a pretty decent rally tomorrow, this is definitely a pretty ugly looking weekly candle, and I think it'll be pretty hard to salvage it. Now, this chart right here, as you see right now, is on the linear scale, right? Obviously, it's showing that we had a massive breakout. And now, of course, the best case scenario here really will just be to come back down to retest this massive trend line breakout, which will pretty much be putting us somewhere in the 220s. But this is where pretty much everyone and their mother is eyeballing right now. I feel like everyone and their mother is eyeballing Tesla coming down to about the 220s. Everyone buys the dip and we rally even further. So that's why for me, sometimes I just wonder, will it really be that simple, right? I don't know, and I don't really think so, but we'll see, right? I think it's either going to undershoot it or overshoot it. But if the weekly candle looks anything like this by tomorrow's close, probably an under or overshoot will be more of the likely option. Now, I want to bring out this chart here. This is on TrendSpider, and the reason I'm bringing this one out is because this chart I have set to log scale, right? This is on the log scale. Now, I do prefer linear overall, but sometimes, it's nice to see how the log charts are looking as well. And unfortunately, the log chart makes things look a lot more bearish, unfortunately, right? Because the log chart is better when it comes to scaling longer term time frames. And this is kind of what we're doing over here right now. Let me go ahead and fix this. I kind of messed it up a little bit, right? This is kind of what we're doing right here, right? It's a longer time frame. Log charts are usually a little bit better, I guess, in that sense. And this is the weekly time frame as well. And what does the log chart show here, right? The linear chart shows us breaking out, potentially coming back to retest. The log chart shows the fact that we never really truly broke out. I mean, we did, just it could be a false breakout. And if we have a candle, a weekly candle that looks pretty much exactly like this, let's say come tomorrow, and let's say tomorrow is a flat day or something like that, and we have this kind of false potential breakout on the logarithmic version of the scale past this trend line, that's pretty bearish, man. Like that's a really bad sign. Like that's pretty concerning. And I think this correction has only just begun, and we're probably going to be going down substantially further, at the very least to the low 200s, in my opinion. We'll talk about more on the daily chart as to where I think those lower levels could be, but it's a pretty damn bad look. Now, I've been talking about this for quite a while, obviously, right? We talked also many times about those trends for Tesla, how, there was a lot of things I was looking at that were showing me that the trend for Tesla should sometime, maybe as early as Thursday, if not early next week, should start flipping back the other way. And clearly that happened today, as we had a massive push up in the morning. And then the news came out that the robotaxi event is getting delayed to October from August. And well, we pretty much just continued, sold off aggressively and continued selling off towards the end of the day with no end in sight. So that's not good, right? That's not good. So that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at there. Let's go back to the daily chart here. Let's talk about just, okay, well, fine. Let's say this correction does start. Okay, well, where can this really take us? Well, if you're someone using the logarithmic or the linear chart, well, the first level really to look at potentially as an overall potential bounce zone and potentially the bottom even on, potentially, a good news, not a good news, but a bullish stance point of view, will pretty much be a retest of this linear chart trendline breakout retest, again, in the 220s. That is that first major level that I'm sure a lot of people are eyeballing. A little too many people are eyeballing that level, in my opinion. That makes me a little bit worried. Now, one thing to note is also, if we do lose 230 though, that's a problem, right? If you lose 230, look at this massive volume gap, right? The reason we broke through this massively and aggressively and quickly even all the way up to these levels is because you can see how little volume there is pretty much between 185 to pretty much 230, right? Very low volume, right? A lot of volume down here, which is why we stalled. A lot of volume up here. So there's a chance that we do stall here, right? There's a chance that we don't actually go below 230 for a little bit of time, honestly. There is that possibility, right? That is a very real possibility that we just stall between 230 and potentially even like 250. And we actually just really dance around this area. That is a possibility that we just dance here for quite some time or at least a couple of weeks. Always a possibility because there's a lot of volume here still, which in theory should be acting as a support, especially down here in the 230s. That is a possibility, of course. Now, if we lose 230 though, again, like I said just now, there is very little volume between this area and all the way back down to about 185. So that could be a possibility of an issue, if you will, right? There is the chance that, we do stall somewhere around the, two teens, right? There's a little bit of a volume spike over here, but nowhere near as much as these two bad boys up here and down here. So keep that in mind. That's important to note, right? Now, another thing you can look at is, of course, well, we have the market bias, right? The market bias is sitting all the way down at the moment at about $210-ish per share. A lot of people are saying that we're going to drop pretty much right down to it at $110-ish possible, but the way I look at it is, well, don't forget this thing can also play catch up to us, and it currently is. So as we slowly make our way down, maybe with some bounces in between, this will slowly keep coming back up to us, and we can meet somewhere in the middle, which can coincide somewhere around the 230, 220s range. That is a possibility, right? So keep that in mind. That is a possibility as well. So let's go ahead and put that away. But of course, we also have the band's regression. Like I said many times, we were overbought, like well overbought for quite some time. It was a very euphoric rally. At some point, music will stop. Just a matter of when, not if, right? And just make sure you're not left holding the bags. And I'm sure some people probably are, and maybe even watching this video, are now holding bags in the 270s. That's not a really good thing to do, right? But, in terms of my favorite, or one of my favorite indicators, the band's regression, the median line right now in terms of the stock, quote unquote, resetting on the daily chart is sitting at about also $213 per share. Now, obviously it's going to play catch up with us. Obviously it's going to keep slowly making its way back up to us, and hopefully, we'll meet somewhere in the middle. But in my opinion, Tesla isn't really like a potentially strong buy until at the very least we come back down to this white line somewhere around there, which obviously my members, I'll keep them updated. Obviously these videos I'll keep updated, but of course they're obviously lagged compared to, my members that obviously are getting it essentially real time, if you will. So, keep that in mind, right? But that's probably the first real level that, really should show some supports, which kind of lines up with that 21 EMA is roughly as well. So that, general level. So we'll keep updating that as it happens. But, I expect them to kind of slowly meet each other, in between, if you will, as, we're going down and it's coming back up to us. So that's important to know as well. Now, in terms of indicators, right? Obviously, we're no longer overbought on the RSI, right? We collapsed almost like substantially, but, we're still pretty up there, right? A lot of times what you get is you get bearish divergences. There is a chance that we get a bearish divergence where we come back up to somewhere maybe even close to 260s to 270s. Again, that's a possibility. We get a bearish divergence. Stock is making, let's say, equal highs. RSI is making lower highs. Congratulations. That's a bearish divergence. Doesn't mean it has to, but if it does happen, that would, in my opinion, be your last chance to really escape before potentially we go down even further if that opportunity presents itself. So that is a possibility. But the thing I'm really looking at here is the stochastic. The stochastic has officially finally flipped the bearish. The green has unfortunately crossed below the red, and it hasn't happened a single time since this rally started, but now it of course has officially happened, which is of course naturally a sign of weakening momentum to the bullish side. So that's a little bit of a cause for concern as well. So keep that in mind. That's something else to note. But those are probably the main things I am looking at right now. I still think overall Tesla is still looking pretty decent. Just a matter of, well, where does this correction take us? I gave you a few levels, but another way to look at it is, well, just simply taking the Fibonacci. You take the Fibonacci from here to here, right? And you just look at it like this, right? From this overall swing low to this, what seems to be at least right now, this overall swing high. And you look at the Fibonacci's and where we can retrace to. 0.382 level sitting at 220, 0.5 sitting at 204, 0.618 sitting at pretty much 189 roughly, right? I'd expect one of these levels to at very least to get tested. First level, of course, is 220, then 204, then 189. I'd be a little surprised if we come all the way down to 190, 189, something like that. It's not impossible because, again, this is where it gets complicated, and this is where trend lines become a problem, because if we do come down to the 618 level on the to 189, that would essentially mean that on the linear chart, we are doing a false breakout, and we pretty much collapse right back underneath that multi-year trend line that we on the linear chart have broken out of. But on the log chart, we never actually really technically broke out of it, at least never closed a breakout like we did, for instance, on the linear chart. So that's where the trend lines become a little bit like, okay, well, which one is actually right? I don't know. Which one is the correct one? Who knows? But so that's where it gets a little bit confusing. But in terms of just, looking at it just strictly through Fibonacci's and just really support resistance levels, volume profile, and taking away potentially arguably subjective trend lines aside, I really do believe that 230 is a very nice candidate for a bounce. If we lose 230, there's a massive volume profile that will potentially, sink us down to these levels as fast as we rose up. And there is a real possibility that we come back down to about 190, back where the volume profile once again really starts, increasing substantially. So that is, in my opinion, the realistic worst case in the bull case scenario, if that were to happen, which again, on the log chart makes sense. Linear chart would seem a little bit bearish because we technically break back down under that trend line. So we'll see how that plays out. But the bulls, honestly, in my opinion, they don't want to lose 220s to 230s. That's where they really want to hold it. So as long as that holds, things will be a lot simpler. If we start losing that, things can be a little bit more complicated, in my opinion. So we'll see how this plays out. I want to see how the weekly candle closes tomorrow. If it looks as hideous as this by tomorrow's close, again, that's pretty concerning in my opinion. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how tomorrow closes. Options flow, obviously, all over the place, right? Hard to say. I mean, it was such a wild move all over the place today on Tesla. It's hard to say if any of these options flow even really mean anything. What I will say is the fact that when Tesla was collapsing, I did see there's a lot of put orders that came in, but before that, there was a lot of call orders came in. For instance, 325 strike November 15th, right? A lot of, money came in for that as well. There was another one over here. Yeah, here, 550 strike for pretty much a year out, right? A lot of money came into that as well. So as Tesla was collapsing, so the whales ate up the dip decently well. They're clearly still bullish, even though it's dipping pretty aggressively. So we'll see if they're right about that. Though, of course, these are, if not several months, so potentially a year out. So they have time. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at. I really want to see how tomorrow closes. Tomorrow will be a pretty big day. And yeah, let's see how tomorrow's weekly kind of closes. That should tell us a bit more information and we'll go from there. So either way, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.